It was a gray Thursday, the kind where the light never fully settles and even the coffee feels colder. Her name flashed on my phone again. Fifth time this month. Fifth time in 25 days. My stomach clenched before I even answered. I let it ring once, twice. Then I picked up. Hello? Her voice trembled, but not from emotion, more like performance. The house is falling apart, she breathed. Cracks in the ceiling. The wiring's dangerous. We can't live like this anymore. My fingers tapped the edge of the counter. I didn't ask how she was. I didn't ask about my sister. How much? The question slipped out like muscle memory. She hesitated, just long enough to build pressure. 100,000? The silence on my end wasn't hesitation, it was calculation. I laughed. Not because it was a joke, but because I knew the rhythm. Crisis, guilt, ask. I don't have that, I said. Nothing, just static. Not a protest, not a sob. Just air, like she was waiting for the next offer. 50? She whispered. It should have made me furious. Instead, I nodded, unseen. Fine. Even before I hung up, something in me knew. This wasn't about ceilings, it was about control. And I just handed her the matchbook again. I stared at the computer screen as the transfer confirmation flickered across the page. $10,000. Gone in a click. I didn't even blink. The Houston account had dust on it, metaphorically. I'd kept it open, though I wasn't sure why. Maybe part of me knew I'd need a wall between her and everything else. Something I could shut down when, things turned. I forwarded her the login. Use this for now, I said over the phone. There was a pause. Why not just wire it to my account directly? It'd be simpler. I cleared my throat, forced my tone into something neutral. I'm sorting out some old tax thing, and it's just easier to use this for now. I could hear her weighing it. All right, she said, and then soft, almost too soft. Thank you. I didn't respond. My thumb hovered over the end call button. Then her voice slipped back in. You know, your father would be proud of you. Taking care of your family like this? The line clicked before I could find the words. Was that supposed to sound comforting? Or was it a dig? Dad, who left her everything except his trust. Dad, who called me his only daughter, even when it hurt everyone else in the room. That night, I sat on the couch, fingers curled around my coffee mug, heat long gone. My husband was flipping through a magazine, not reading it, just turning pages. She'll ask for more, he said. I know. So, you're not sending all of it at once? I shook my head. Installments. I want to see how she uses it. He looked at me then, not judging, just tired. Tired of watching me walk into the same fire. The next morning, my phone rang. My childhood friend. We hadn't spoken in months. Hey, guess who just booked the terrace ballroom for next month? She chirped. I blinked. Who? She laughed. Your sister. Silence. You didn't know? I stood up too fast. The mug on the table rattled. She didn't even invite me? She said it was a surprise thing. Kinda last minute. A fairy tale theme. Our biggest package, actually. I sat back down, slowly. You're sure it's her? Positive. Full guest list, fancy decor, everything. Your mom was there too, picking out flower arrangements. Lilies, I think. My lips felt cold. I barely managed a nod, though she couldn't see it. Thanks for telling me. I hung up before she could ask more questions. The first thing I did was check the Houston account. Empty. Not a dollar left. I scrolled through the transactions. Furniture store, catering company, a payment to Blossom Events. I stared at the final line. Venue deposit, $7,500. My throat tightened. It wasn't about the money, not really. It was about the ease with which they'd lied. The performance. The calm voice over the phone thanking me. As if I were a donor, not a daughter, not family. I pressed my forehead to my knees and closed my eyes. My hands trembled. Why does betrayal feel worse when it's done gently? I didn't tell my husband. Not yet. I couldn't say it out loud because, once I did, it would be real. And if it was real, I'd have to choose. Let it go. Or finally do something. Somewhere deep inside, I already knew what I'd choose. But I wasn't ready. Not yet. The moment I opened the banking app and saw the zeros, my chest tightened. The Houston account was empty. I stared at the screen, not blinking, not breathing. There hadn't even been a pause. The withdrawals came fast, one after another. Furniture store, payment to a floral designer, deposit for catering. The final transfer wasn't even subtle. Ballroom venue, $7,500. I called her. She picked up on the third ring, sounding winded, as if caught in the middle of something. Hi, sweetie. Everything okay? I didn't bother with greetings. I checked the account. There was a pause, not long, just enough to notice. Oh, yeah. The renovation hasn't started yet, but the company's been hired. They're just waiting on the permits. A lie always begins with a list of complications. Which company? I asked. Their name is, I think it's Horizon Construction, or maybe Horizon Living. I have the card somewhere. I leaned against the counter. Can you send me pictures of the house? I'd like to see the damage before they start. She cleared her throat. Of course. I mean, there's not much to show yet. Just walls marked and cracks. You can't see much in photos. I didn't say anything, just let the silence hang. I'll send something soon, she added quickly, voice rising. Once I find my phone charger, the battery's dying. That night I didn't sleep. My brain refused. Every minute, it played out a new version of the same story, rewriting my mother's lies with clearer subtitles. The next morning, I dialed my aunt. She answered right away. You're calling early. I have a quick question about Mom's house. What about it? She said it's falling apart. Renovations are about to start. There was a long breath on the other end, the kind people take before stepping into something sticky. Renovations? It looks brand new. My heart dropped. What do you mean? I passed by last week. They painted everything. Front porch is redone, windows look new. I thought maybe you'd sent her more money. The last word echoed, again. 6 months ago, she'd called crying. Said the doctor told her she needed immediate knee surgery or risk losing mobility. The word urgent had echoed so loud in my head that I barely let her finish before wiring $20,000. I'd never even asked for proof, just transferred it and prayed it was enough. This time, I called back with my own lie. Hey, I said casually. A friend of mine's looking for a good orthopedic surgeon in Houston. I remembered you had your surgery a few months ago. Oh, yeah, she interrupted, quick and nervous. That was, at the place near Memorial Park. I can't remember the name. I'll find the papers. I waited. Static buzzed. Then she added, Hold on. I think the network's going bad. The call dropped. I stared at the call-ended screen for a full minute before closing the app. I didn't call again. I didn't need to. 2 hours later, I got a text from her. One word. Sorry. No explanation, no apology, no attempt to cover up. Just, sorry. Like I'd dropped my ice cream cone. I sat on the edge of the bed, phone in my lap, eyes blurring with hot tears. They started slow, like always. And then they came faster than I could stop them. I pulled the blanket around my shoulders, tucked my knees to my chest, and cried until my throat ached. I hadn't cried like that since Dad died. Back then, the pain had been sharp, but clean. Grief is like that. You bleed, but you know why. This? This was murky, twisted, and knotted with memory. It wasn't just what she did. It was what it meant. What it confirmed. I was never her daughter in the way she was my mother. To her, I had always been useful. A shield, a wallet, a name to sign, a faucet to turn on when the bills came. Somewhere deep in the sobs, my daughter came in, small, barefoot, holding her stuffed bunny. She touched my hand. Mommy, did someone hurt you? I looked into her eyes and said the only truth I could find. Not anymore. But the lie was still fresh, and I knew what I had to do next. This wasn't over. It was just beginning. The phone rang during my lunch break, a number I didn't recognize. I nearly let it go to voicemail, but something in my gut made me answer. I wish I hadn't. Hi, ma'am. Is this... The voice paused to confirm my full name. Yes, this is she. My fork hovered midair, salad untouched. Great. Thank you for your time. My name is Travis. I'm with Midland Financial. We're just doing a quick verification regarding a recent credit application filed under your name. My mind stalled. Sorry, what application? A personal loan request. Filed 2 days ago from Houston. It's been flagged as irregular due to the address and signature discrepancy. We just need to confirm a few details. Can you verify your mother's maiden name? My throat tightened. No, I said flatly. Not until I see what you're talking about. There was a pause, a slight shuffle like he'd leaned away from the mic. I understand. Would you like me to email the attached application for your review? Yes. Send everything. 5 minutes later, I opened the file. I sat perfectly still. The signature at the bottom was mine, my name in my handwriting. Or close enough. Close enough to fool a stranger. But not me. The listed phone number wasn't mine. The address was my childhood home in Houston. The attached ID was a copy of my old license, long expired. But it wasn't the forgery that knocked the air out of me. It was the precision, my birth date, my maiden name, my father's middle name, details I hadn't spoken aloud in years. Only my mother knew them all. Only she could have accessed the right pieces. I printed the file and sat on the edge of the bed. My heart felt like a pendulum, swinging between disbelief and a rage so old it almost felt familiar. She hadn't just taken my money, she'd taken me. I called my husband, told him I needed him to come home early. There was something I had to show him. He read the printout in silence. Then again. Finally, he looked up. Do you want to press charges? I didn't know how to answer. Part of me still clung to the hope that this was a mistake, that maybe she'd been manipulated. Maybe someone else had done it using information she'd lost. That the woman who raised me, who held my hand through scraped knees and whispered lullabies after storms, hadn't actually signed my name on a loan application. But hadn't I already seen the truth? Hadn't I already watched her drain accounts, invent surgeries, reroute funds for weddings I wasn't invited to? And now this. She used my name, I whispered, more to myself than to him. She used my name for a loan. She used my father's name. He knelt in front of me. You don't have to decide now, but you can't stay quiet again. I nodded, but my hands were already moving. Not to call the bank, not to call her. Not yet. I opened the voice memo app on my phone. I didn't know when the confrontation would come, but I knew I'd need proof. This time, I'd record it. This time, I wouldn't let her lie and rewrite. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling. The shadows danced with the breeze, soft and slow. My daughter's nightlight glowed faintly down the hall. It was strange. The more I saw my mother's face in the shadows, the more it looked like mine. How many times had I justified her behavior? How many excuses had I invented to protect the version of her I needed to believe in? She didn't mean it. She was struggling. She had no one else. But now she had me. My name, my history, my worth, in numbers and ink. And still, it wasn't enough. What would it take? How much of me had to be carved away before I was allowed to say enough? The next morning, I got another email. From Travis. Just wanted to confirm we've frozen the application for now, pending your report. If you decide to pursue legal action, I can forward your file to our fraud department. I stared at the report fraud button at the bottom of the screen. I didn't click it, not yet. Instead, I did something quieter, something smaller, but maybe more powerful. I changed the password on every account I owned. Bank, email, tax portals, medical, even the old login to the alumni page of my college. Each time I hit save, I felt a little more like myself again. Not the daughter, not the donor, not the puppet on a string of family obligation. Just me, my name, my story, my voice. And this time, I would keep it. I wasn't expecting a message that night. Definitely not from someone named Brittany, whose profile photo showed a blurry beach sunset and the edge of a smiling face. I almost deleted the request, thought it was spam, but the preview caught my eye. Sorry if this is weird. I opened it without thinking. I think I was dating your sister's fiancé, until last month. He told me we had a future. I found out he was engaged from Instagram. I reread it 3 times before my brain caught up. The words were plain, ordinary even, but something about them felt heavy, like someone had placed a rock in my chest and walked away. She attached screenshots, messages between them. Flirty, sometimes tender, always recent. Most dated through the fall. One from 3 weeks ago. A selfie of them at a bar, heads leaned together, glowing. Then, a photo that stopped everything. They were kissing. Not in secret. In full daylight. Outside a cafe I recognized from downtown Houston. The timestamp was just days before my mother had called crying, saying they couldn't afford the venue deposit and needed just a little more help to avoid humiliation. I read her message again, slower this time. I found out he was engaged from Instagram. I closed the app. My reflection stared back at me in the blackened screen, Pale and still, I stood at the sink, hands motionless in soapy water, letting the dishes go cold beneath the surface. My husband was just a room away, flipping channels, humming to himself, unaware that something inside me was splintering in silence. I could have told him, but I didn't. Not because I didn't trust him, I did, but because I didn't trust the words yet, not the shape of them, not the weight. There were too many betrayals layered on top of each other, like wet leaves I couldn't peel back without tearing something. My sister, my mother, the fiancé I barely knew. And now Brittany, stranger, mirror, messenger. Should I be furious on Brittany's behalf? Or mine? Or should I feel sorry for my sister, who was building a life with a man who whispered promises to someone else? But then came that quiet, cruel thought. The one that always arrived last, after the compassion, after the analysis. Maybe they deserve each other. And I hated myself for thinking it, for the flicker of satisfaction it brought. The back door creaked open. My husband's voice drifted in, light and easy. Want tea? I dried my hands slowly. Maybe later, I said. He smiled and disappeared again. I stood alone, still tasting the bitterness of that thought. Not proud, not angry, just tired. Tired of being the one who always forgives first. The next morning, I scrolled through Brittany's profile. Not in a stalking way. More like an archaeologist. I wanted to see who she was. Try to understand why this woman, a stranger, had gone out of her way to message me, to warn me, to connect. Her photos told a quiet story. Teaching kindergarten. A dog with one floppy ear. Sunday hikes. Nothing dramatic. Just someone real, someone who believed she was building something with a man who had no intention of keeping her. My sister's fiancé. I didn't know much about him. She met him less than a year ago. All I knew was that he worked in finance, had a smile too white to trust, and shook hands like he was measuring your palm for weakness. The few times I spoke to him, he called me kiddo. I was older than both of them. And now this. I reopened Brittany's message. My fingers hovered. I typed, I believe you. Then deleted it. Typed again. Thank you for reaching out. Deleted that too. I didn't send anything. But I saved the screenshots to a private folder. And then I printed them. Hard copies. Proof. Because part of me knew something was coming. A storm. A confrontation. A reckoning. And when it did, I didn't want to rely on memory. That afternoon, my phone rang. I flinched when I saw the name. My mother. I let it go to voicemail. Then my sister. A missed call. Then another. Then a text. Why are you ignoring us? No mention of money. No mention of Brittany. I turned the phone over and left it on the table. The next day, I walked into the kitchen just as my husband was reading an article on his tablet. Without looking up, he asked, Did you see the wedding planner's post? I blinked. What? He handed it to me. The post was from my old school friend's husband, the same one organizing the wedding. A public update, vague but strained. We reserve the right to deny services where trust is broken. Respect works both ways. It wasn't tagged, but I knew. They hadn't paid. The money had stopped. Because I had stopped it. I looked at my husband, unsure of what I was even asking. He nodded. You did the right thing. It's okay to let people face the weight of their own choices. But I didn't feel relieved. I felt hollow, like I was watching my own life unravel through a window I couldn't open. That night, I went back to Brittany's message. Finally, I typed, Thank you for reaching out. I had no idea. Her response came quickly. I'm so sorry. I didn't know you were involved until I saw the last name on the venue list. I thought you deserved to know. I replied, I did. I just didn't know how much I didn't know. Then, did he tell you anything else about their relationship? She hesitated. Only that it was complicated, that her family was intense, controlling, that he felt trapped but didn't want to hurt anyone. I stared at the message. My fingers were shaking when I typed, He said he felt trapped? Yes, I sat with that. Not because I believed him, but because I believed he believed it. That was the kind of man he was. The kind who plays both sides. The kind who tells Brittany she's his future, and tells my sister he's ready to settle down. The kind who takes what he wants and lets everyone else clean the wreckage. Just like my mother. Just like my sister. Later that night, I added the screenshots from Brittany to the same file where I'd kept the fake loan documents, the account withdrawals, the printouts of texts my mother sent asking for urgent help. right before my sister bought a $2,000 wedding gown. I stared at the folder. It didn't look like justice yet, but it looked a lot like truth. And for the first time in weeks, I felt a strange calm settle in my chest. Not peace, not yet, but preparation. She picked up on the second ring. Too fast. As if she was expecting me. "Oh, finally," she said, her voice light, almost relieved. "I've been meaning to call you. I'm going to ask you something," I said slowly, carefully. "Please don't lie." Silence. I could hear the hum of her fridge in the background, the sharp clink of something, maybe her spoon against a cup. She was making tea, like this was a normal conversation. Like I hadn't uncovered a trail of theft dressed in excuses. "I know about the loan," I said. Another pause. Then a long breath, like she was blowing out smoke. "I had no choice. You forged my name." Her voice softened as if that could erase the truth. "Your sister, she needed the wedding to be perfect. Her fiancé's family, they're wealthy, prestigious. What would they think if we couldn't even afford chairs that matched? So you took my identity? It wasn't about stealing. It was about helping. You have so much. She has so little." My fingers tightened around the phone. You could have asked." She didn't want to ask. She said she didn't want your pity. She wanted this to be hers. She wanted my money. That's what she wanted. She didn't argue. Just silence again. Then a quiet, "You live so far. We didn't think you'd find out." But I had. And this time, the call was different. Because I was recording. Every breathless justification. Every manipulative pause. The way she turned betrayal into a favor and painted theft as devotion. The worst part? She didn't sound guilty. She sounded resigned. Like this was always going to happen. Like I'd been written into the script. Not as a daughter, but as a resource. And for the first time in years, I didn't interrupt. I let her talk, because her voice so steady, so rehearsed, it wasn't mine anymore. It belonged to the truth. And soon, it wouldn't belong to her either. We sat side by side on the couch, the glow of my laptop screen flickering across our faces. My husband leaned in, eyes fixed on the audio timeline. "You sure you want to include this part?" he asked, pausing on her voice. The moment she said, "You live so far. We didn't think you'd find out." I didn't answer right away. I was watching my own hand tremble on the mouse. "I need them to hear what manipulation sounds like when it's soft," I said. We kept editing. Clips of her voice layered over screenshots. The forged loan papers, the transfer receipts, the messages from Brittany, photos of the freshly painted house, lilies lining the front porch. I blurred names, faces, addresses, but not her tone. Not my silence, not the truth. When it was done, I stared at the video file. "It doesn't feel like revenge," I whispered. "It's not," he said. "It's documentation." I uploaded it to the smallest YouTube creator I knew, a woman who'd once exposed a local nursing home for neglect. She always ended her videos with, "Silence is not peace." I trusted her. She responded the next morning. "This story needs to be told." By Friday, the video had over 300,000 views. The comments were a flood. "This is financial abuse. Your mother doesn't deserve access to your life, let alone your bank account. I hope the fiancé sees this before it's too late." Apparently, he did. The wedding unraveled faster than I expected. Brittany's TikTok hit 500,000 views in 2 days. She cried through the video, shaky hands holding screenshots, texts, photos, the audio of my mother's voice twisted with entitlement. 3 days before the ceremony, he left. Just packed up and vanished. My sister tried to reach him, but he blocked her. The planner, my old friend, called me with a voice that sounded tired and resigned. "They pulled the venue," she said. "No one wants the scandal." My phone buzzed through the night. 16 missed calls, voicemails stacked like bricks. "Now, how could you do this to your sister?" She was finally happy. "We're your family." Each one sounded less like grief and more like blame. I didn't reply. They didn't deserve silence anymore. They'd already used mine like currency. The morning of the wedding, the last voicemail came. Her voice was flat. "Don't call me again. I don't have a daughter anymore." I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I pressed delete contact. It didn't feel cruel. It felt like healing, like closing a wound no one else believed I had. The days after felt quiet, but not peaceful. More like the silence after a door slams, echoing long after the impact. A neighbor I barely knew stopped me by the mailbox. Saw the video, she said, not meeting my eyes. Hope your sister's okay. I nodded. What was I supposed to say? She's alive, just not entitled to my life anymore. Online, some called me heartless, said I should have handled it privately, said I was jealous. One comment read, "No wedding is worth tearing a family apart over." But hadn't they torn it apart first? I sat in my kitchen, rereading the comment, and whispered aloud, they didn't just take money. They took my name, my trust, my history. My husband walked in, coffee in hand. Regretting it? I didn't answer right away. I regret not stopping them sooner, I said finally. He sat beside me. You didn't destroy the wedding. They did. You just refused to carry the shame for it. I looked out the window. The trees were bare, the wind soft but restless. I thought about that phrase. Blood is thicker than water. How people use it like a rope, like a leash. But I was done choking on obligation. They built their kingdom on my silence. And now that it was gone, it crumbled. Let it. The sky was the color of old silver, heavy, quiet, waiting. I stood barefoot in the grass, the cool earth grounding me as my youngest tugged at my sleeve, pointing to the dark clouds forming above the trees. My husband stood just behind me. He didn't speak, just slipped his hand into mine, the way he always did when words felt too small. Thunder rolled in the distance, low and distant, like something breathing. I think it's coming, he said softly. I nodded. The kids ran ahead, chasing wind, unaware of everything the past weeks had torn down. They didn't know about stolen names or broken weddings or how silence could be a weapon. They just knew the air smelled like rain and the sky looked dramatic. I looked up. Not to pray, not to wish, just to let go. His hand squeezed gently. I squeezed back. Not to answer, but to confirm something quiet between us. That I was here now fully, finally. Not buried in guilt, not looking back. Just here. The first drop hit my cheek, and for once I didn't flinch.